So what we're looking at today is the Cartesian plane. Okay, so the Cartesian plane. So I'm just going to lay this out here. So the title that you're taking down there is Cartesian plane. And we're going to just draw a Cartesian plane. And when I say draw a Cartesian plane, all I mean is draw the same as we've been looking at before, where we're going to plot our x and our y points. Okay, so we'll run a line down there. And we'll run a line across here. And we'll label them. The y-axis points up to the sky. The x-axis goes across. Okay, so from that we can see our x-axis and our y-axis. So it's just getting you familiar with the terminology, right? So we call the x-axis. I'll actually just put that in there. X-axis. Okay. X-axis. And we call the y-axis. Okay, so these are all just key points, right? So when you're labeling points, when you're drawing these graphs, right, it's very, very important that you're able to be familiar with a few different things. So the first thing is where the 2 points intersect is what they call the origin. So where you've got 0, 0, that's what they call the origin. O-I-R-I-G-I-N. Okay, so the origin. O-R-I-G, I should say. So there should be O-R-I-G-I-N. It should be, okay. So the origin is where 0, 0 happens, okay. Now, the next thing that you need to know is you obviously need to know your x-axis and know your y-axis. Your y-axis points up to the sky, is how I like to remember it. Okay, so y for sky. Okay, the whole thing is called the Cartesian plane. Okay, so the Cartesian plane is the whole thing. And the only other thing you need to know is the quadrants, okay? So we call this one here the first quadrant. So this is all language. Okay, we call this one the second quadrant. Obviously, this one will be the third. Well, not obviously, but and the fourth. Okay, so you just need to know that information, right? The actual plotting of the points is very, very easy. So plotting of the points is very, very easy. And what I mean by that is once you've laid out your Cartesian plane with your x and your y-axis, where they intersect is 0, 0. Then you need to be able to, fill in all the other information. So very, very simply, like when you were dealing with number lines in primary school, we just label this. Similarly, everything's going to be the same distance apart. So we label this 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So obviously, this part here is going to be 0. So this one here is going to be -1. This one here is going to be -2. This one here is going to be -3. This one here is going to be -4. Okay, and obviously -5. Now, the fact that you guys are working from home makes this that bit tricky because typically we'd be able to see people's work, and a lot of students tend to make mistakes with these. So when we're going up, it's positive. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, it's very, very important that these are the same distance apart, the same distance from here to here, same distance from here to here, same distance from here to here, and the same distance from here to here. So obviously going down, we'll have -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. So just make sure those negatives are visible. Okay, and that's our Cartesian plane with everything there. So once you have it laid out correctly, you've got your positives and positives. Okay, you'll have your negatives and positives. Okay, because x comes first, y comes second when we label points. So just as a recap, if I was to label this point here, that point would be 4, -1. If I was to label this point here, that point would be 3 and 2. If I was to label this point here, or no, not that high, here, that point would be, my x value is -5, my y value is +5. And if I was to label, I'll just do one negative. This one here would be -4 and -1, because your x value comes first, your y value comes second. So you can see there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of information in this page. Just going to tidy that first quadrant, I should say there. Okay, so we'll skip on there to the next slide, right? So the next one there, what we need to do is we need to look at the 4 quadrants, obviously. So you can see here, A, B, C, D, and E are all in the first quadrant. So A, B, C, D, and E are all in the first quadrant. Okay, and I want you to take a second just to label those points. Okay, I'll start off by giving you the first one, and it's very, very, very important that everyone's aware of the fact that the x's come first, the y's come second. So x is first, y's second. X value first, y value second. So the first one there, for instance, the x value would be 2, the y value would be 2. So in this case, 2, 2. 2, 2, I should say there. So 2, 2. So I'll give you a second there to try and label the other ones yourself. And then we'll go through them, right? So I'll give you a second to try and label them, then we'll go through them. So there's your values there, so you can double check that, and we'll move on there to the next one. So that's all of them. So we'll move on there to question 2. So for question 2, they want you to draw your own axes, okay? So this is where this starts to get tricky. So students tend to find this more challenging than it needs to be, right? So what we'll do is we'll look at this, we'll draw our own axes, and we'll fill it in, okay? So when you're drawing these axes, it's important that you have a ruler and that you have squared copybooks. So if you don't have square copybooks, you're going to have to go in and get a square copybook, because if you're to do these, they have to be accurate. So there's no point in me drawing this like this and then saying this is that far apart, then that far, then this far, and then this far, and then here and here, and then here and here. So I can't say 1, 2, 3, 4. They have to be the same distance apart the whole time. Okay, so it's very, very important that each one of these blocks are the same distance apart, and that's why it's very, very important that you use square copybook, because that already has squares laid out here. Okay, so we get rid of that and we get rid of this, and we'll go from there, right? So we'll start off fresh. It says use a pair of axes on the question to find these. Okay, so can we start there by just looking first of all? So I want to know what is the highest x value. So if you look at these here, I want to know what's the highest x value. So I've got an x value of 2. Okay, so I have an x value there of 2. I have an x value of 3, an x value of -2, an x value of -3, 4, -2, and -1. So what's the highest x value in this case? The highest x value in this case is going to be 4. So I know that my line is going to have to go up as far as 4. Okay, so let me just fill in that there. I'm expecting this to go as far as 4. Okay, so 3, 2, and 1. Okay, obviously it'll be going back as far as 0 and 0, 0. Okay, what was my lowest x value? My lowest x value there was minus 4. So I'm going to have to go back the whole way as far as minus 4. So minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, and minus 4. That should be 4. So that would be my x-axis drawn. Okay, so that's my x-axis drawn from here the whole way across. And you can see that there. So that's the x-axis drawn. Sorry now. Things flying everywhere. So that's the x-axis drawn. What I need to do next is I need to draw the y-axis. So I'll use the same principles as I just did a second ago, and I'll just label, or I'll just highlight the y's and see how far they go. So the y's go from 3, 5, 1, 2. So the y's go as far as the highest y one is going to be 5. So I'm going to have to go up 5. So if I go to 0, I'll go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'll just squeeze that one in. I have to go down as far as negative 3. So I have to go down to negative 1, negative 2, and negative 3. So that's my graph drawn there, right? So that would be that one drawn there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring all them together. So if I can just get them together for a second. Sorry now, so obviously it's easier to do this in class, but we'll just do it from here, right? So you've got your y coordinates going up and down, so your y-axis going up and down, and you have your x-axis going across, right? Now we need to fill in those points, okay? So I'll give you a second there to try filling in those points, and then I'll fill them in here so you can see. So I'll fill in the first one for you, which is point A. The second one is 3, 5, so go to 3 and go up 5. So we go to 3 on the x-axis and we go up 5, and that gives us point B. So I'll give you a second there to fill the rest in, and then I'll fill them in for you. Okay, so we'll quickly fill in the rest of them there. So we've got A and B filled in. So now we're going to fill in C, which is minus 2, 1. So go to negative 2 and go to positive 1. So that would be here. That's C. Go to negative 3 and go to positive 2. Negative 3 and go to positive 2. That would be here. So that would be D. Go to 4 and go to 0. So if I go to 4 and if I come down 0, that's just going to be E here. F is going to be negative 4 and negative 1. So F. G is going to be 2 and negative 3. 2 and negative 3 would be here, so that would be G. And H is negative 1 and negative 3. So negative 1 and negative 3 will give me H, which is there.